As Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas announces that Russia, alongside France and Switzerland, will take part in investigating the death of his predecessor Yasser Arafat, we ask what's behind Russia's involvement and why has it taken so many years to launch such an investigation? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Rida Fakhri. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has said that Russian experts will join a team of Swiss and French investigators in exhuming the remains of the late Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat later this month. Abbas made the announcement during a ceremony to mark the 8th anniversary of Arafat's death on Sunday in the West Bank city of Ramallah. Arafat died at a French military hospital from an undisclosed or unknown condition. Abbas says he hopes the Russian involvement will help the forensic investigation.
There is a complete coordination between us and experts from France and Switzerland and also the Russian government to exhume Arafat's body on the hope that new facts will arise.
Just last July, a 9-month investigation broadcast here on Al Jazeera revealed that Yasser Arafat was in good health until he suddenly fell ill on October 12, 2004. Further clinical tests showed that some of Arafat's personal belongings, including his clothes, his toothbrush, contained abnormal levels of polonium, a rare, highly radioactive chemical. Those personal effects, which were analyzed in Lausanne, Switzerland, were stained with Arafat's blood, his sweat, saliva and urine. The tests carried out on those samples suggested that there might have been a high level of polonium-210 inside his body when he died. So what does polonium-210 do to a person? Well, although it is harmless when it is outside the body, once inside it, it becomes one of the most deadly substances. An amount equivalent to the size of a particle of dust is lethal. After being ingested into the body, polonium-210 quickly gets into the bloodstream. Then it bombards the cells with millions of radioactive alpha particles. It damages the organs, first the liver, and the kidneys, causing jaundice. It also damages the intestines, causing toxic shock syndrome. And finally, it attacks the heart. So why now and why Russia's involvement in this investigation? To answer this question, we're joined by our guests in Moscow, Vyacheslav Matutsov, Executive Chairman of the Russian Friendship Society with Arab Countries. Mr. Matutsov is also a former Russian diplomat. In London, Abdelbari Atwan, Editor-in-Chief of Al-Quds Al-Arabi newspaper, and from Atlanta on Skype, we're joined by Dr. Tram, a professor at the University of Georgia. And let's first begin, though, from Ramallah, Al Jazeera's Clayton Swisher, whose documentary, What Killed Arafat, triggered calls for the exhumation of Arafat's remains. Clinton, many Palestinians believed in 2004, when Chairman Arafat died, still believe today that he was a victim of Israel's political assassination and very likely was also eliminated physically by Israel. Just how much appetite is there today on the streets of Ramallah to have this theory revisited, reopened, and perhaps, just perhaps, put to rest once and for all?
Well, the popular street here welcomes the investigation because while they've always believed that Yasser Arafat was poisoned, there never was an investigation done. There never was forensic evidence brought forward that proved that he was poisoned. Now, Al Jazeera didn't accomplish that either. In our film, they found elevated levels of reactor-made polonium-210 in Arafat's biological samples from his last personal effects. They were not able to make a conclusive ruling because they said, as a matter of law, the body exists, we must test the body. So the Swiss asked Ms. Arafat, if she wants to know the truth, we must test the body, and of course Ms. Arafat obliged, and we're at the condition now where we're preparing for the exhumation in the next several weeks.
It is hard to understand, though, why Yasser Arafat's widow, Suha, waited all these years to seek a criminal investigation, to have the body exhumed, when the theory of assassination existed from day one. In fact, the theory of assassination with polonium-210 has existed for a while now.
Well, I can't speak for Ms. Arafat, but what I can tell you is that when I approached her 1 year ago this month in 2011, I took the medical records, convinced her to give them to Al Jazeera, of course, took them to the best forensic experts around the world, led by the University Center for Legal Medicine in Lausanne, Switzerland. They, after reviewing the file, said, boy, it would be great if we had something to test. Is there anything she has, medicines, his old clothes, anything possible? Because forensically, we can do tests decades after and be able to detect trace amounts of poison. So I then went back to Miss Arafat, and she racked her brain and says, well, you know, the hospital gave me a bag of his last effects that he took to Percy. It would just be his hat and maybe some of his pills and his slippers and whatnot. So I then met her in Paris. She turned over that bag, which she later told me had been in the custody of her lawyer at a law firm in Paris. Apparently they were saving that to give to their daughter Zawa when she turned 18. We then took that bag to the institute directly there to Lausanne, and they tested it, and after ruling out conventional poisons, that's where they found the polonium 210. As to your first part, why she's initiating this now, it's the fact that she didn't initiate this. Al Jazeera, I initiated this for the network, and it was through our investigation that we were able to find indications that there may have been poisoning. And that's why there is now a criminal investigation, because governments just don't go poof and order criminal investigations unless there's what's called probable cause to believe a crime was committed. And with this discovery of polonium we made this year, they were able to say, now we think, based on this very credible Swiss institution, that we should open a criminal investigation, exhume the body, and test for ourselves to see if this man was poisoned.
Clayton, thanks very much for now. That was Clayton Swisher in Ramallah. Let's get a Palestinian view now and speak to Abdel Bari Atwan. He's in London. How wise a decision was it by the Palestinian leadership to have the remains of Yasser Arafat exhumed at this stage?
I'm surprised, honestly. Now President Abbas is calling for the Russian help. Yes, the Russians are expert in radiation poisoning and medicine, and they have the proper equipment to test the body, to test the grave, and to tell us what happened. But the problem is, or the legitimate questions you have asked, Gida, why the Russian kept away for the last 8 years of this investigation? Why Arafat was not sent to a Russian hospital, for example? Why the Russian expert did not examine the body 8 years ago when he was assassinated by poison, by polonium? So this is raising a lot of questions about the capabilities, about the intention.
Certainly there are lots of questions to be raised, but from a Palestinian perspective,
yes.
Do you find this to be a wise decision? Because the scientists tell us that after a number of years, the traces of polonium, if they were there to begin with, might have decayed, might have disappeared in a very significant way. Just how wise a decision has it been for the Palestinian leadership to decide to exhume the remains of Arafat?
I believe the Palestinian Authority were afraid of the Israelis. Maybe they were instructed by the American, by the Israeli, not to examine the body. This is the only explanation for this. And this is a very, very big mistake. To be honest, I'm shocked as a Palestinian why Arafat actually left all these years without telling us. The authority in particular, they said we set up a committee to investigate his death. What did the committee, achieved for the last, 8 years? The big question is, or the answer is a big zero. So we are shocked, and I believe now there is still time. We should not actually miss the deadlines, and when this the polonium traces is decayed completely. So this is the time, and I believe also we should put pressure on Percy Hospital in Paris, where Arafat spent his last few days of his life. About these records, these medical records, why we cannot see the outcome of this, why as we told, these kind of records were destroyed by the hospital. A very, very prominent person of the Arab world, of Palestinian question, of Palestinian causes, why actually these kind of records were destroyed. Definitely there are duplication of these records. We want to see it. We want to know. We are entitled as Palestinians to know the causes of the death.
Let's find out if we can conclusively know whether or not he was poisoned. Let's speak to Professor Tram Dallas. As you know, Professor Dallas, analysis by the Swiss Institute found abnormal levels of radioactive polonium on some of the belongings of Yasser Arafat. How conclusive can a test on his remains today, after 8 years, be?
Well, as was stated previously, 8 years is a long time for a short-lived radionuclide like polonium. Polonium only lasts every 138 days. There's half as much polonium as there was 138 days previously. It's been 21 of those now. 21 half-lives have transpired. So the amount of polonium is very small. The questions being raised previously about the delay are legitimate ones. It's very difficult to conduct a forensic investigation this long after the fact.
So can scientists prove that Arafat was poisoned with polonium? And do you think they will be able to tell us with a high degree of confidence if he had any polonium in his body when he died?
Well, the scientists can definitely detect polonium now, even this long later, because the ability to detect radiation is very strong, because radiation can be detected at very low levels. The problem exists in the fact that the evidence, the forensic evidence, was not under close control during that 8-year period. In any criminal investigation in any Middle Eastern country or in the United States or in Europe, the evidence, forensic evidence, has to be kept under very strict controls. And of course, that was not necessarily done in this case.
Vyacheslav Matutsov, I understand 97% of the world's legal production of polonium-210 is believed to come from Russia. Does that explain the reason why the Palestinian leader has asked for Russia to get involved in this investigation? And what can Russia bring to the table?
First of all, I think that Russia has nothing in common with all this investigation. But I think that Palestinian leaders are interested in Russian participation on political reasons. Why? Because if it will be made by French, for example, scientists, French medical team, and France, where he died when he was treated before dying, to Paris, he was transported from Ramallah, from Muqata, and of course all medical surroundings. Yasser Arafat before his death was Western-oriented. It was French medical doctors. But I can say that it is absolutely clear that medicine in France on high level, and I think that politically and on medical reasons, Palestinian leadership preferred to bring Arafat for Paris to help him. I met Arafat some months before he died. I brought to him, being a president of Russian Palestinian Friendship Society, 15 deputies of our parliament. We met him. He was in a very good mood. He was very active. So it was absolutely unclear why he so quickly died. Of course, this question appeared to me. But there was another question, political question, not medical one. Why a Nobel Prize winner who did nothing criminal to be imprisoned in Ramallah? Who imprisoned him? In what reasons was behind this political decision to put him in Muqata or in Ramallah, in his residence, and keep him from any other outside contact,
well,
except those who are coming to him?
You talk about these political factors,
but I ask about
the Russian
reasons why
involvement. This is a forensic investigation, not a
Russian
political investigation.
For me, it is clear why.
What is the added value
It is clear why.
What is the added value of having a Russian expert? Is it because Russia has considerable expertise with polonium?
Not only polonium. Russia have quite a lot of experienced medical treatment and medical experts who can give conclusion if it was or not. Because if it will be done by French or Swiss Western-oriented doctors, all Palestinian leadership can be blamed that in Paris he was treated and now the French medicine give him the results. I think it is for balancing view to keep out any suspicious. They brought Russian, French, Switzerland. I think it is right decision, and it is based on objective study without no political involvement. It is only specialist in this treat, if it was polonium or not. I don't specialist in how long it can withstand polonium. 8 years, it's not much maybe for it. Maybe because if they found out that this polonium was on his dress, when Suha, his widow said that they found polonium on his clothes. I think if it is so, it should be found out.
Well,
if
it isn't just
or not.
his widow. I mean, his clothes, the clothes he wore at the very end when he was being treated in that French military hospital were tested at the Swiss Institute, and
but why
they were found
it was
to have
not
a
found
large
in French
degree
hospital?
of-
That is the question.
Well, that is the question, and perhaps
That is the
Professor
question.
Tram Dallas can give us an idea as to why the French did not keep some very crucial potential evidence in a criminal case, although a criminal case wasn't opened into his death, but blood samples, important tissue samples that might have been used today to determine the cause of death. Why weren't they maintained when under French law they should have been kept for 10 years? And we know that this wasn't a simple commoner who died at that hospital in 2004. This was Chairman Yasser Arafat, and there were questions and doubts surrounding his death from day one.
It is very unfortunate that they did not keep long-term samples. That obviously should have been done. It's not surprising to me that the French investigators at the time did not discover polonium or any radioactive element. It would be highly unusual until the death of Alexander Litvinenko 2 years later in 2006. It was very unusual, almost never heard of, that somebody would be poisoned by a radionuclide, and particularly by polonium. Polonium is an alpha emitter. Most people think of radioactivity as gamma emitters, where you have a Geiger counter and you can detect the radiation. Not so with polonium. No one would have thought in 2004 to look for polonium. After the Alexander Litvinenko incident in 2006, it's quite famous now that an alpha emitter was found in that individual. But not 2 years earlier in 2004. It's not surprising that the French did not discover this because it wasn't as famous as it is now. It is very mysterious that samples were not kept for a longer period of time. One would have expected that to have happened.
Abdelbari Atwan, do you think a criminal investigation could have been opened as far back as 2006 when there was this case of a polonium-related assassination in London confirmed? And politically, just how important might it be for Palestinians to establish that Yasser Arafat died not of natural causes but was assassinated?
I think the criminal investigation should start immediately after Arafat's death because it was very mysterious way of death, honestly. So it is the responsibility of the Palestinian National Authority. We had Mr. Nabil Shaat, who was the foreign minister at that time, saying that, you know, the French report saying that they tested all kind of poison, more than 400 poison, and what Arafat died of, none of these poison, well-known poison to the French authority. So I believe it was clear, it was a criminal case, and it should be, you are absolutely right, it should be actually investigated more after 2006 when this Russian spy was assassinated in London by the polonium. So, but why there wasn't actually a continuous pressure on the French government, on the Israeli government, on everybody else who are involved in this to continue the investigation? I'm really shocked. And now we know the truth or part of the truth. We would like to have a concrete evidence that he was actually poisoned by polonium, and we want to know who killed him. It is very, very important questions. Who was involved? Who got these capabilities? We had that 3 countries only on the words got these capabilities: the Russian, the Israeli, and the United States. So who did it? So this is the biggest question. We are not here for the investigation only. We are here to know what after the investigation, who will be criminalized, who will be actually charged for this, who will be the country or the espionage organization behind this death.
A lot of questions, obviously. Before I turn to Mr. Matoutov again, let me just ask Professor Tram Dallas about the potential source of this polonium-210, if it is found to have been in Arafat's body, if this exhumation and investigation process will be conclusive at the end of it. Is it really just 3 potential countries, as suggested by Abdelbari Atwan, or is it any country with nuclear capabilities, whether civilian or military, including Israel?
Polonium is a very rare element. It's very rare. Only a few countries have it. In addition to the three nations already named, I would add others. Basically, polonium is a nuclear weapon trigger for large weapons, basically the weapons that are implosive devices where you have to squeeze the plutonium down into a core to have a fission reaction in order to have a detonation. Those are large nuclear weapon countries, which would also include Britain, France, and China. You would have to add those nations to the list as well if you're going to include polonium weapons. As I stated earlier,
could it have come from Israel as well?
That's correct. Israel does not have a declared nuclear weapons arsenal, but it is largely assumed by most intelligence services that they do have nuclear weapons.
Vyacheslav Matuzov, what does Russia gain from getting involved in this process?
Well, I think for investigation, Russia will be very useful because it is, on my opinion, Arafat was a friend of Russian people, and I also, 40 years we were helping a Palestinian movement, Palestinian organization, PLO. All these things were famous, and Arafat was a friend of Russia, and my private friend for 20 years, even more. I can say that polonium that mentioned 210, maybe as I read in papers from specialists, that all country producing polonium can be registered, because polonium of Russian polonium, British polonium, French polonium, Israeli polonium, or American polonium are different in their substance. I think that studying the rest of polonium in the body, if it is, will give the answer what country produced that polonium, because they are not the same formula they have, as I read in papers. So I'm not sure about my words, but I read it in newspapers, and I can say that if it's so, would be very helpful to find polonium and to identify what country produced it. I think after 8 years it is not much time for this nuclear matters. So I think it will be very possible. Russia is helpful in this deal, I'm sure, because it balanced politically and in scientifically. Russia helps to investigate this case and to find the answer.
How useful is Russia going to be in this? Is it better late than never? And is Russia's participation in this investigation something positive as far as you and many other Palestinians are concerned?
Oh yes, definitely. It is extremely positive. Russia is a friend of the Palestinian people. They were a friend of Arafat also. They helped the Palestinian. They got the expertise, they got the expert, and we need second opinion. We don't want this investigation to be Western-orientated investigation. We would like to have a third party beside the French, beside the Swiss. So I believe the Russian fit the bill, and I hope it will be fruitful to know the truth. I'm really regretting that the Russians were not involved from the day one. I think we should involve them. And why Abbas, why actually Yasser Arafat did not involve them? I heard that the Russian asked the widow of Arafat to investigate, to participate in the investigation. They offered their help, but the help was turned down. Why their help was turned down? Why we did not go to them? Why the Palestinian Authority did not go to Russia from the day one? I'm really amazed. I think it should be internal Palestinian investigation to reveal the truth for everybody in the Arab world. Why they did not involve Russia from the day one? This is very important investigation.
The remains of Chairman Arafat set to be exhumed later this month, in fact on the 26th of November. Certainly much more debate surrounding this in the days ahead. For now though, thanks to all my guests in Moscow, Vyacheslav Matuzov, in London, Abdelbari Atwan, and in Atlanta, Georgia, on Skype, Professor Tram Dallas. And thank you very much, as always, for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. Please do send us your feedback and comments by emailing us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. For Miri Dafahi and the team for now, thanks for watching.